All right, so long beginning as usual. Yeah, so I thought I would talk about what I find are for me the appeal of classical music, or more classical guitar versus jazz guitar. Clearly, I'm more of a jazz player than I am a classical player. That's for sure. Put it that way. Yeah, and but there are benefits in both of them. So it's not a knock on classical or knock on jazz from that perspective. Some of the things I like about classical guitar is the whole technique aspect of it. So at the beginning of this video, I was playing, I guess, reading the complete Carcassi guitar method by Mel Bay. Really beat up. And so it's Carcassi. So it's like, what is this, page 19? Allegretto and arpeggios and stuff. So that's some of the stuff I like about classical music. So with jazz, there's so much to learn. And it's not to say there's not a lot to learn with classical music or classical guitar, but it's very structured. The pedagogy, the arpeggios, the fact that you hopefully you learn to read, and so it's a definable kind of in the box thing. And I don't mean this as like demeaning by any respect, but it's very structured, for lack of a better word. So that's I actually like that about classical music. So it's not, okay, here's a couple of chord changes and let me play over the chord changes, keep the melody. There's not as much thinking involved in it, and that's not a knock on it. But if you get the technique down, which is hard as hell to get down, you pretty much can get it down. And there's interpretation, obviously, from that perspective. So that's what I like about it. That's like so if I pick up a song and I get the music and I learn how to read a lot better and my technique improves, it's going to always sound really nice in the way it's supposed to sound. Now, the things, that's one of the things that I love about classical music. And also, too, you could basically stay in the first position. There are so tons and tons of studies and etudes that you can do that's very musical and it's accessible. So obviously what I was playing is accessible to perhaps anybody, let's just put it that way. So it's not very complicated, but at the same time, I see people playing like Paganini Caprice 24, all sorts of stuff, and their hands are all over the place, which I'll never master, I'll never play in my lifetime. So it's also very complicated. So that's the other aspect. So one, I like the structured nature of classical guitar music. I also like the technical aspect of it, that if you work at it, you can be very good technically from that perspective. And the third thing I like about classical music, or at least classical guitar, is that to me, it's sort of like the fullest way of expressing the guitar. Obviously, I'm playing a plugged-in guitar, but if I had my classical guitar and I played that, everything is your hands as far as like as far as like your tone, and you learn to play soft, play loud, all sorts of stuff. So your technique really improves. So those are the things I like about the and plus I don't know enough because I didn't study it about the music. But what I do know, I like a lot. Obviously, everybody loves Bach and things like that. But I like Carcassi, Giuliani, Fernando Sor, all of that stuff. And they're mostly elementary stuff like that. And I like, a lot of the, like the Bach transcriptions, things like that, when people are playing it. So that's what I like. What I don't like about classical music is what I love about jazz music. It's a long-winded way of coming around to this, which is the whole idea of improvisation. So I played So What, right? Miles Davis when I was doing that. And I had a long ass intro. That's what I love about it, the freedom of jazz. It's almost like you are entitled and you could be loose with it. By that, I don't mean that you're not playing over chord changes. I personally, I'm not a fan of all the chord changes stuff because it's just like, hey, you're just playing over chords. I like melody and things like that. But I sort of like the looseness of the expression. Jazz allows you to be expressive to who you are. The way I play that A minor 7 and the way you might play is going to be different. And all of that stuff allows me to get my feelings across with jazz. And I'm not saying you can't get your feelings across with classical music. Of course you can. What's that song? Schumann's piece, Reverie. I saw there's a video of Vladimir Horowitz playing that stuff. And it's just so moving. So it's not about that. But jazz allows me to be very expressive of my soul from that perspective. And, yeah. And it allows you some freedom that you don't have in classical music. Classical music sometimes to me is a structured approach, and it's in a box. It's in a great box, don't get me wrong. But jazz, and that could also be the knock of it, is that it kind of like, to the untrained ear, it sounds like you're all over the place. It sounds loosey-goosey. It just sounds like you didn't really learn anything. You're just playing a bunch of notes all over the map. And whereas, somebody plays the Brandenburg concertos, you know what it is, or Jay's Resource of Man's Desiring, if I go and things like that. So anyway, both forms of music have their virtues, and I think the beauty of music is that we're allowed to borrow from both of them. I will never be a classical guitarist. I wish I could. And I'll never be, the best jazz guitarist, but I can borrow from both of the two and then make music, and hopefully you enjoy it, I enjoy it, and learn from that. So that to me is like, in a perfect world, when the two meet, the fusion of jazz and classical, you just make beautiful music and you enjoy it, and there's a lot to be learned and appreciated in both genres. All right then, thank you for watching. Sorry for this long video, but hey, practice and practice some more.